Welcome. My name's Teresa. I'm a registered dietitian and a board-certified specialist in oncology nutrition. And today we're here to talk about healthy eating during and after cancer treatment. Today we're going to cover the guidelines from the American Institute of Cancer Research, which produces evidence around healthy eating and other lifestyle factors that impact our risk for cancer. I want to first acknowledge that the risk for cancer and other chronic conditions is complex. When we think about all of the risk factors that come together, our food choices, our physical activity level, and other lifestyle factors are just a couple pieces of the puzzle. There are always those other components that are outside of our control. Things like our genetics and family history, environmental exposures, our age, and others. So today we're focused on just those lifestyle factors that are within our control. And we're going to talk about ways that you can take small steps to work towards achieving and maintaining your best nutrition health. For those going through cancer treatment right now, there may be symptoms that arise as part of your treatment that make it hard to get the nutrition that you need. If you're having trouble eating enough, that's a good reason to come talk with me one-on-one so we can make sure your nutrition needs are met. Our discussion today is going to focus on more of a general healthy eating approach that's most appropriate for those who are able to get enough nutrition in and are able to eat enough to meet their body's needs. So today we're going to work through the recommendations from the American Institute for Cancer Research. And you'll notice that many of these recommendations are pretty broad and focus more on food groups, types of foods, and how often they play a role in our day-to-day compared to specific foods or nutrients. There will be a few specific things that we call out towards the end where we see a more direct risk for cancer. But in general, we're looking at what we do most of the time. The reality is we eat foods, we don't eat nutrients. It's what we do most of the time that is going to have the greatest impact of our health. So the foundation for these recommendations comes from a goal of eating more plant-based foods. And the good news is this aligns with recommendations from the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, and others. All of these organizations are recognizing the evidence that shows we can benefit from eating more plant foods. And when I say plant foods, that does not mean that you have to follow a vegetarian or vegan diet. In fact, we see the same health benefits just by eating more plants with or without animal products. So what do we mean by plant foods? Plant foods include things like whole grains, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, and legumes. And what all of these have in common is that they're high in fiber, and they're also rich in important vitamins and minerals that we need. When we think about creating a balanced plate at our meals, the goal is that 2/3 to 3/4 of that plate is going to be filled with these plant-based foods. Now, this is going to look a little different for everybody, and that's okay. The goal here is to choose the foods that you enjoy and incorporate them more into your meals so that you're getting the majority of your nutrition from these plant foods and incorporating the animal products like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, or dairy in moderation alongside those plant foods. So building on this foundation of a goal to eat more plant foods, our next recommendation is focused on types of foods to limit or avoid. We encourage limiting foods that are high in added fats, added sugar, and added sodium. This is typically found in highly processed foods, things like packaged foods or restaurant foods. And the reason for limiting these is twofold. First, when foods are packaged or processed, they tend to lose some of their beneficial nutrients. Second, the added fats, or added sodium, or added sugar can have a negative impact on our overall health. So while they may not be directly linked to cancer risk, eating more highly processed foods with these added fats, sugars, or sodium can contribute to risk for other conditions like heart disease or diabetes. So I want to talk for a moment about processed foods and talk a little bit more about highly processed compared to minimally processed. I recognize that for most of us, eating only whole foods or only fresh foods is not realistic. And the good news is you don't have to go that route. Minimally processed foods include things like canned or frozen fruits and vegetables. So they have in fact been processed. They've been picked and then flash frozen or canned. And that processing actually helps to preserve some of the nutrients. So if we're choosing frozen fruits and vegetables without added sugars or sauces, or canned fruits and vegetables without added sodium or canned in juice or water, we get all the nutrition value from those fruits and vegetables without missing out on any of those important nutrients. So research shows that frozen and canned fruits and vegetables have just as much nutritional value for us as their fresh counterparts, and these can absolutely be incorporated as part of a healthy eating pattern. Now on the flip side, when we think about highly processed foods, these are going to be those foods that have the added fat, added sugar, or added sodium that helps to preserve them, make them shelf stable, and quite frankly, make them taste good. The goal isn't that we eliminate these entirely, but that we're mindful of where these foods are fitting in our day-to-day. So think about processed foods as a treat food rather than an everyday food. Aim to shift towards more foods that are closest to their natural form, like those fresh, canned, or frozen fruits or vegetables, whole grains, and our lean protein options. Building off this recommendation to limit highly processed food, our next recommendation is specifically around sugar-sweetened beverages. So this category includes things like sodas, sports drinks, even some fruit juice cocktails. And the concern here is the same as with our highly processed foods. These sugar-sweetened beverages lose a lot of their nutritional value and provide us with, quite frankly, just extra sugar. So I want to take a minute here and talk about that sugar. You may have heard that sugar is causing cancer, feeding cancer, or something along those lines. And this is a really common idea out there. Part of the reason that this idea persists is because there's a grain of truth to it. So we all have sugar in our blood all the time. That sugar is called glucose, and it's required for us to be alive. That glucose moves through our blood, and it's pulled out of the blood by our cells and burned up for fuel, kind of like gas in your car. So it's true that cancer cells use that glucose for fuel, but when we say sugar feeds cancer, we're ignoring the fact that our muscles and our brain and our other tissues all use that same sugar as well. And we don't have a way to starve cancer cells without starving the rest of our body. So rather than focus on sugar, we want to focus on the nutrient value of our foods. That sugar that ends up in our blood is the final product of digesting any carbohydrate food. And there's a big umbrella of carbohydrate foods that includes things like whole grains, things like breads, rice. It includes starchy vegetables like potatoes or corn. It includes fruits with their natural fruit sugars, dairy products with natural milk sugars, beans and legumes, and under that same umbrella is our sweet treats, sugar-sweetened beverages, and all of those goodies. So all of these foods break down to sugar when we digest them, but there's a big difference in the nutrition value. And we've already talked about encouraging more of these plant foods, more of these carbohydrate-rich whole grains, veggies, and fruits. So where we're concerned is that small bucket of the added sugars, the sweet treats and the sugar-sweetened beverages that provide us with extra energy and not a whole lot of nutritional value. We have no concern about those nutrient-dense, fiber-rich whole foods that have carbohydrate. And in fact, we want you to eat more of them. And even those treat foods, our sweet treats and our sugary beverages, can be incorporated in moderation. The goal is simply that we're treating them as treats and not as everyday foods. Our next recommendation also builds off that goal of limiting highly processed foods. So here we're going to get a little bit more specific in terms of foods that we have some greater concern about when it comes to cancer risk. So we're going to talk a little bit about red meats and processed meats. And we're going to tackle these each separately because there's a bit of a different rationale for the two. So our red meats. Red meats can be incorporated in moderation, ideally 18 ounces a week or less. So let's think about a quarter-pound burger or say a 4-ounce steak. You could incorporate 4 servings of that in your week and still fall within that 18-ounce goal. So while we don't have to exclude red meats, we do want to limit how much red meat. And there's a couple reasons here. From a heart health perspective, red meats tend to be higher in saturated fat or solid fat. And for that reason, we want to limit how much we're taking in. Now, with any animal products, whether it's red meat like beef or pork or lamb, or say poultry like chicken or turkey, it's important that we're choosing the leaner versions. So if we were to compare ground beef and ground turkey, and we had 95% lean ground beef versus 85% lean ground turkey, we would want to choose the leaner 95% lean ground beef. Now, when we think about those red meats and cancer risk, the concern comes from how they're prepared. When red meats are cooked over direct, high heat, such as grilling, that charring creates some cancer-causing compounds. So when we think about how we make and prepare red meats, oftentimes they are exposed to this high direct heat, which is part of where this concern for risk comes from. So with your 18 ounces a week of red meat, explore different ways to prepare it so that it's not exposed to that direct high heat to create that charring or blackening. As an example, you might cook a beef roast in the oven. This is the moist heat cooking method. It's not going to create those compounds. If you're preparing, say, a burger or a steak, perhaps you cook it first in a saute pan on the stove until it's about 75% done, and then finish it off on the barbecue grill. So it will still be exposed to some of that direct high heat, but for a much shorter period of time, which is going to limit the amount of those cancer-causing compounds that will be present. So with our red meats, we want to limit how much overall, 18 ounces a week or less, choose leaner cuts, and limit the high heat cooking methods. When it comes to processed meats, these fall into that highly processed food category. They tend to be very high in saturated fat and also high in sodium. So from that heart health perspective, we do encourage limiting these as much as possible. Now, when it comes to cancer risk, the concern is related to the curing process itself. So when we think about smoked meats or cured meats, this includes things like salamis, sausage, bacon and ham, lunch meats. It's actually the process of curing or smoking them that creates some of these cancer-causing compounds. So for this reason, we recommend limiting as much as possible to limit exposure to these. Now, as an example, bacon is a pretty popular food item. This is where I get the most pushback. Let's say your normal weekend brunch includes scrambled eggs, 3 slices of bacon, and some toast. A small step towards a more healthy eating pattern might look like a half a strip of bacon, crumbled up and used as a garnish on your scrambled eggs in lieu of the 3 strips of bacon you might have eaten previously. So keep in mind, it's not about being perfect or eliminating foods entirely, but being mindful of how often these are coming into your day-to-day diet. The next recommendation focuses on alcohol consumption. From a cancer risk perspective, we encourage limiting alcohol as much as possible. Now, many of you may be familiar with the idea that red wine can be protective against heart disease. We've been hearing this for many years now. And while there may be some benefit from a heart health perspective, we see a direct increase in cancer risk with any amount of alcohol consumption. So for that reason, we do not anticipate any potential benefit of that red wine or other alcohol to outweigh the risk when it comes to our cancer risk. So the goal is to limit alcohol consumption as much as possible. If you do consume alcohol, aim for moderation, which is defined as 1 drink a day for women and 2 drinks a day for men. We've learned a lot about different foods, and next I want to talk about nutrition supplements. Now this could include vitamin or mineral or herbal supplements. These are popular. About 80% of the population in the US takes at least 1 supplement. And we have some good research that shows that for most people, these supplements are not providing added benefit. If you're eating a mostly balanced diet most of the time, it does not have to be perfect, you're likely getting all of the vitamins and minerals that your body needs. Now, there may be some exceptions. If you have a medical condition that makes it difficult for your body to digest or absorb nutrients, your doctor may be prescribing specific vitamin and mineral supplements. Your doctor may also recommend specific supplements if you're taking certain medications that are known to have side effects that can impact your vitamin or mineral status. So let's talk a little bit about preventative use versus therapeutic use. Therapeutic use is when your doctor identifies an issue. Let's say they order a lab draw, they test your vitamin D levels, and they're low. And your doctor recommends or prescribes a vitamin D supplement. So we've identified a problem through this test, and we're using that supplement to treat the problem. In this therapeutic use, it's more similar to a medication. On the flip side, we have preventative use. An example of this might be you eat a pretty balanced diet and you take a multivitamin every day just in case. While it's unlikely that that multivitamin is going to be harmful for you, it also likely isn't providing significant benefit. We don't have any reason to think that you're missing out on nutrients from your diet, so that multivitamin is just in case. It's important to be aware that vitamin, mineral, and herbal supplements are not regulated in the same way our food and our medications are regulated. So it's on each individual company to monitor the quality and the content of their supplements, which means there is a risk that the supplements you buy at the store may not contain what we think they contain. There have been instances where there are higher concentrations of a substance or lower concentrations than on the label. And there's also potential that a supplement may have contaminants that are not being tested for. Use supplements with caution. Know that for most people, they're not needed. And if you do have concerns about any specific supplements, you can always talk with your doctor about them and how those might interact with medications or your treatment plan. We can't talk about a healthy lifestyle without addressing physical activity. And we'll have more resources to support you there. Keep in mind that how we fuel our bodies, our food choices, and how we move our bodies, our activity throughout the day, can both directly impact our health and our well-being. When it comes to activity, choose a type of movement that you enjoy, something that feels safe based on where you're at in your treatment plan, and find something that feels sustainable for you for the long term. Remember that any amount of movement is going to benefit your body. You don't have to be training for a marathon to reap the benefits of physical activity. So let's put this all together. Today we've learned about recommendations to eat more plant foods, to limit highly processed foods, and to work towards a greater balance in what we eat every day. I want to encourage you to think about a first small step. Oftentimes we try to overhaul everything all at once, which can get frustrating, overwhelming, and be really difficult to sustain. When we think about our health, we're in it for the long run. So by starting with a small step, for example, adding 1 extra serving of vegetables each day, we can gain momentum, build positive habits, and continue stacking new habits on top of that. So let's say you set a goal today to add an extra serving of vegetables each day. And over the next 2 weeks, you're able to add an extra serving of veggies 10 out of 14 days. That's a great time to build upon your goal. Perhaps your next step goal is to make half of your dinner plate full of veggies. And as you continue working towards that goal, exploring new recipes, trying new vegetables, you'll be able to build upon that healthy habit until ultimately your lunch and dinner meals are half full of veggies. Or maybe you'll even be adding veggies to your breakfast meals. Start with what feels most natural to you. Focus on what you do most of the time, because this is going to have the greatest impact on your overall health. And don't be afraid to make adjustments along the way. There will always be trial and error. The most important thing is that you're here to learn and you're willing to try. And you get to adjust as you go, based on your preferences, based on your schedule, and what's realistic for you any given day. Know that these small steps do make a difference in both decreasing your cancer risk and achieving your best health long term. I want to address a couple common questions. First, should I only eat organic foods? This is one we hear a lot. Research shows that the nutrient quality of organic produce and standard or conventional produce is about equivalent. So you're getting the same nutrition benefit whether you choose organic or choose conventional produce. There is a cost difference between the two. Organic produce does tend to have a higher cost compared to conventional. The most important thing is that you're eating those plant foods. So if the cost of organic is a barrier, you're going to get more health benefit from eating the conventional produce than skipping out on the produce altogether because of the cost. For those who are interested in incorporating more organic produce, the Environmental Work Group releases lists every year that share the 12 foods highest in pesticide residue. This is a good list to work off of if you'd like to choose organic. So if we know that conventional apples are typically very high in pesticide residue, and you eat an apple every day, that may be a worthwhile option to switch to the organic. They also released a list of the 15 foods that tend to be the lowest in pesticide residue. So when choosing conventional produce, you may choose from that list, as it's typically going to be lower in that pesticide residue. Regardless of if you're choosing conventional or organic, always be sure to thoroughly wash your fruits and vegetables under running water. No specific vegetable fruit washes are required. Just scrub them well to remove any dirt or debris. This will also remove most of that residue. But from a food safety perspective, washing that produce is key. Another common question we hear is about the safety of soy foods. Soy contains a plant estrogen, and in the past there's been concerns that that plant estrogen may function like the estrogen that we produce if it's ingested. The good news is we don't see any risk of estrogen activity from those plant estrogens when consumed in whole soy foods. In fact, some research shows that there is lower cancer risk in groups who eat soy as part of their regular diet. Whole soy foods include things like edamame or soybeans, tofu or tempeh, which are fermented soy products. And these are great options for protein and that plant fiber, along with vitamins and minerals. If you'd like to incorporate soy, you are certainly safe to do so with these whole soy foods. Now, where we have a bit more concern is concentrated soy supplements. You might find this in a soy herbal supplement or even a soy protein powder. When we concentrate that soy, there's going to be a higher amount of those plant estrogens, and thus more of a likelihood that there could be some impact on your body. While we don't have evidence that shows this is the case, we do encourage avoiding these high concentration supplements and focusing instead on those whole foods, which very much aligns with what we see for vitamin, mineral, and herbal supplements overall. When we choose the food form, we can get what we need with very little risk. If you have more questions after watching this video and reviewing the materials, you're welcome to set up a time to talk one-on-one to address any specific questions or individual nutrition concerns. I look forward to meeting you.